Yeah, welcome back, guys. We will be continuing from where we stopped in the previous class. And yeah, where did we stop in the previous class? In the previous class we selected all our buttons which we'll be making use of in this application. So now let's start. Let's start bit by bit, and yeah, we'll get there. So the first thing we have to do now is we have to add event listener to our buttons. So I'm going to add btn dot add event listener. So I'm going to have an input field. That's for our input field, input. So selecting our input, then we have a function of add tags. So we are actually going to write our add tags function later, but add tags. So let me just write that function. Let me call the function const add tags. So I'm going to be making use of arrow function. So console.log. So what the approach I'm actually going to be following through in this approach is I'm going to be writing audio functions one after the other before calling them. So you can just see me, I'll just write like a function beforehand and I'll come back. Probably I just write the function and I'll call it later on. So let's continue. So that's add tags function. Then we have tags input that add event listener. So we have key press. So I made mention of this in the last class. That function dot e, and we have const. We have if e dot key equals enter equals enter. We call add tags function. We call the add tags function, and yeah, that's done. That's us selecting our input field. HP. I made mention of this in the last class. What the E does is just a function. The E could be anything. It could be just like a parameter that we are passing into it. So what the E does is select, if we are checking for the key that we are pressing. So based on this key press function that we are writing, it's working with your keyboard. If I click on any key, it's going to be attached to that E, and it's going to be based on the letter. Each of your keys on your keyboard has an identifier, which is either A, B, C, D, that is used to represent it on your screen. So if you click on any key, it's going to be picked and you can use that. So we are now checking if E dot key, that means the key on my keyboard I'm going to press, if it equals enter, then once it's equals to enter, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call my add tags function. That means is also what I gave an analogy in the last class, that if you on your application you are trying to log in, sometimes you don't need to click on the login button. If you're using your system, you just click on the enter key, and when you click on the enter key, it automatically calls the function, that it automatically submits the form. That is one of the things. This is actually a particular line of code that does such a thing. So let's continue. I hope you understand HP, but I'm sure HP is not your name. So actually do something. Actually rename yourself. So another thing we have to do is we have to validate our input field so that our users does not just put in empty space. So this is also something you do when you're working with input field. Probably your users don't go into your application and start writing something like this. Just start putting space. Space is actually a character, but it could actually disrupt your data in your database. So you have to do something like this, which is, let's now validate our input field. So we have tags input. We have tags input. Okay, all right, no problem, Joshua. So we have tags input dot add event listener. Add event listener, that's the input field. Input. Then we have dot function. So const is empty, that means if the input field is empty, what should we just do? We just do this dot. You can read up on this keyword. This is actually like a kind of a different explanation on its own. So you can just read up on this keyword. So this dot value dot trim, not this dot value dot trim. So what I'm simply doing here is if there is actually like a if the input field is empty, you should simply do what? It should actually do, which is add event listener, add btn, no sorry, add btn, dot add event listener, sorry, btn. So once the field is empty, what it simply has to do is it has to disable the button. Yeah. So what I'm simply trying to achieve is once this input field is empty, this button should be disabled. That's simply what I'm trying to achieve. So is add btn dot disable dot disable. So the disabled equals is empty. So what this simply means is that if our input field is empty, if this input field is empty, it's simply going to do what? It's simply going to be disabled so that they can't click on the button. And you would see that when we run the application. So running the application is not actually what matters. What actually matters is the function you're writing. So that's what I'm actually focusing on. Not that I'm going to be running the application one after the other. So the next thing we are going to do is we are going to select either of these buttons. So what do? You can see I used a component of query selector all dot filter dash btn. I'm going to have filter button. I'm going to have filter buttons dot for each. If you can remember, we did a for each in the previous class. Dot for each btn. So if you don't know what a for each is, you have to go back to the introduction. Did I mention for each? Yeah, I think I did. I mentioned for each. You just have to go back to the introduction video and you would see it there. So we have btn dot add event listener. That's a click event. We have a click, and we have comma function. So we have filter button dot for each. That's so I'm going to be defining a variable here. B equals, sorry, my B stands for button. I don't want to write a long button. B equals does class list. So this is where I mentioned that you can actually manipulate your CSS from your HTML. So at this point, I am actually doing something. I'm actually trying to manipulate our CSS from our HTML. I'm trying to manipulate our CSS from our JavaScript. That's simply what I am trying to do here. So I'm trying to remove the active state. You can see that on all, we have an active state, but what it simply does is when you click on pending and when you click on completed, the active state should switch. That's simply what I'm trying to achieve with this function I'm writing. Just remove, and what am I removing? I'm removing active class, which is defined. Then we would continue. So we have this dot class list dot add. So if there is an active if the tab is actually active, what you simply just have to do is you add the active class back on it again. Dot class list dot add active class. So if you select a particular one and there's an active class, what do you simply do? just activate the active class back on it. So we have current filter. So we have current filter, which is filtering through all our tasks to see which one is pending or which one is completed. Equals this. Is it possible we have comments on each of the? Okay, all right. Thank you, Fernandez. I'm simply going to do that. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to add those comments on it. This dot data set dot filter. So let me just start from the beginning. So this is like DOM element selection. So this is for local storage, tax data storage. Tax data storage, and this is adding event listener. Click event. Click event on button, not off, on button. So we have input validation, Then here we have filtering of button, removing, filtering button and removing slash adding active state. So that's it. So I hope that's clear enough. So we have render tax. So this is also another function I'm also going to write later on. So this is what this function is simply doing, is that once it has filtered through, it's actually going to render those functions. So the first line is, I'm now going to write this. We're going to have our add tax function. I called this is our add tax function. So we'll have const text tax tax text equals tax input field dot value dot trim. So this, I explained what the trim function does. So we have if tax text equals an empty string. What are we doing? This is also us making decision. Alert. Please. Please, sorry for that. Please enter a tax. So what this simply means is that if at a particular point in time you are clicking on the enter button and there is no text inside, it's simply going to tell us that, okay, enter a tax. There's going to be an alert on our screen telling us to enter a tax, and we do what? We simply return. So I mentioned that every function has a return keyword. So that's that. So we have const. So now we are now creating our tax. Create tax object. So we have const tax. So we are going to have an object now. So not an array, an object, which is going to be audio details that you'll be saving at once. That is how it's going to be carried. So we have ID. So each one of them is going to have an ID. Yeah, so we have tags. So this is going to be like an object of how our tags are going to look like once we upload them. So we have tags, we have ID, and this is going to be um tax ID. So you can see I have tax ID counter up here. I created a tax ID counter. Let me clear this space is too much. So I have a tax counter ID here. So it's one, our default one is always going to be one. Then we have plus plus. Then the next one that we would have tax name. We'll have the text. That's the text that is going to be added. We have the text which is going to be tax text. So the next thing we would have is we'll have a completed. Our completed is going to be default false because every task that you're creating at first, they're always false. So we're not going to have created at, so the time that is created, we now have created at. So if you, this is simply the way backend actually works. When you're sending your data to the backend, this is how you're going to send it. So you're going to send it in form of an object, but there are some details that you yourself are not going to be adding, which is just going to be automatically added at the backend. So something like created at and something like your ID, you're not going to be the one that will create it. It's automatically generated on the backend. So to create like the date, we just have something called new date. So this is how you create, yeah, this is how you check for dates in your backend. So the next thing we're now going to do is we just have tags dot push. Our tags is an array. So when we add a new item to it, we want to push into it. So this is our array right here. We are going to push into it. So that's what we have done here. So we are updating. So here we are updating the array with new tags. So at every point that we are adding to the array, we are adding at every point we are adding new tags, it's going to be tags or tags. It's a single tags. Okay, let me explain to you. When you start out, you are going to add a tags. So at the point of clicking this button, that's when you are adding a tags. Basically, when you want to, you can't add multiple tags at a particular time. Everything you're going to be doing is you're going to be adding one tax at a time, one tax at a time. So updating the array with a new tax. So you're updating the tax array. So you're updating this array right here. You're updating this array on line 76. You're updating it with new tax. So it's one tax you are adding, not two tax. So I hope that is clear. So the next thing we are going to have is Joshua. Oh, okay, all right. So the next thing we would have is so once you have added your tax already, we are going to just do we're going to have clear input field. So at every point in time when your tax is successfully added, what do you have to do? You just have to clear your input field. You just have tax input field equals this, and we are going to disable the button once again. Add tax btn dot disable. So we are disabling it already, equals true. So, and I think then the next thing would have here is would have a re-render update. So we are rendering our tax. We render. So we are going to update our UI. Update. Let me just use update UI. Update UI. So we have the render tax and would have update tax. Update tax. So these are functions we are also going to call later on. So you can see that at every point in time, this is just our add tax function, and this is, you can see inside the add tax function, we have other function that is being called. So that is, we are done with our, this is, now let me add a comment here, adding tax. So let's continue. So the next one we have now is, we now have to toggle. So this our toggle element right here. So this toggle, this is where we have the toggle. So we have const, I like using arrow function. Const, we have toggle tax equals tax ID. So this was passing a parameter right here. Tax ID. And we have const tax equals tax dot find. So this is another this tax dot find is also another property of an array which is used to find through a tax. Yeah, you're actually doing something like a filter method, but this is not a filter. This is just you finding through an array. So we have tax. That's going to be tax dot ID equals tax ID. Tax ID. So let's continue. If tax, so this, if tax, please, if you have any question, you can always drag me back, please. If tax dot completed, tax dot completed. So we are checking if tax dot completed equals not tax completed, not tax completed. So what I'm simply checking here is that we have to check for the tax that is yet to be completed. So if a tax is not yet completed, what am I writing? Am I making typo error? Completed. Tax dot completed. So we would have to now re-render tax, and we would now also update our tax again. Update tax. So that's that. So the next function we're also now going to write is, we are writing a delete function. Would have a delete function, which is going to be used to delete our tax, basically. So we have const delete tax So right here, we are going to pass in our tax ID once again. We're going to pass in our tax ID. So for you to be able to delete a tax, you're going to be using an ID to delete it. So even if you are working with the backend, it's simply going to also show that okay, you are actually working. You're actually going to be deleting a tax with an ID in all throughout your application. So that's what you use to delete a tax, not the tax name, because your tax name might actually be the same, but the ID, there are no two elements that has the same ID. They are definitely going to have different IDs. So that's that. So let's continue. Let me write the function. So we have if we have confirm equals, so this is also like an alert system. Are you sure you want to delete this tax? So this is just more like a check that we also do. So we just have tax equals tax dot filter equals tax dot id. Sorry, I mean tax dot id. So we would, what we are just going to do is now after this we just render tax, and you would have update tax. Yep. And I think we are done with the delete tax function. Then let's now go to our render UI function. So we have const render tax. So render tax is tax list dot inner HTML equals an empty string. So we have let's filter tax. Let's filter tax. Let's filter tax equals tax. Filter tax. If current filter equals completed, have filter tax equals tax dot filter, because I'm going to be using a shortcut now. C dot completed. So I hope you understand what I did right there. So instead of me writing tax in full, I just give it a shortcut of tax. So I just gave it a shortcut of tax. So we have else, and we have else if current tax filter equals pending. So we have filter tax filter tax equals tax dot filter tax does filter equals c dot tax c dot so I think we are done with this. So next thing we would have is if filtered tax dot length equals 0. So if there is no filter tax, empty state dot style dot display equals block. So I have a style that I've actually defined as that. Then you return it automatically. Then we have else. Empty state dot style dot none dot display equals none. So and yep, we are done with that. So now we have our create tax function. So let's now create our tax itself. So let's have const create tax. So we have tax pass tax as a parameter here. I will have const li equals document dot get element by id, document dot create element, Hello guys, are you getting what I'm writing or I'm just speaking to myself? Hello, are we following?
Yes,
Let me
sir, we
take
are
it 5
following you,
minutes.
sir.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm not following you.
Yeah, not following. Who is not following? Ahmed.
Good morning. I think I
Yeah.
came late to the party actually, so that's why
Okay.
everything is looking so good or something to me. I came late actually.
Okay. You can always just catch up. You can always just go over the class video and you will get it.
All right. I will do
So let's
later.
have li dot class name equals tax dash item tax dot completed completed equals empty string. So y is tax list equals tax minus. Why am I having this? So this should actually be this. Actually with this, yeah. So let's continue. So we have li dot set attributes equals data dash id comma tax id tax ID. I think I've missed something. Tax.id. I think I'm missing out something in this code. Let's continue. If the code does not run, we'll figure out where the error is coming from. li.inner HTML equals using backtick. So this is us writing HTML in our JavaScript. So we have div /div. So one thing I want you to know is that emit does not work in JavaScript. You have to write out your code yourself. Class equals tax dash content, and we have input field type equals checkbox of class. So this is me styling it. So anything you can do with your HTML, you can actually do it in your CSS, in your JavaScript, but it's just going to be a different thing entirely. So checkbox. So this is me adding style also to it. So we have completed, checked, tax of completed, or we have, or it's not completed. So this is ternary operator that I just wrote. So let's continue. So we have on change. So on change does equals toggle tax that's tax.id tax.id. So this is to toggle the tax at coming tax.id. Tax.id. So I think I've missed something. Yeah, thank you, Tobichuku. That's number one error. Thank you. That shows you are following. Instead of inner HTML in capital letter, I wrote it as camel case. So I think this class right here, there's something wrong right here. There's something wrong with this thing I'm writing here. Something wrong here. This unchanged function. There's something wrong here. But let me continue. Span. So this is a span, and so we have a class. We have a class of tax-text. Tax-test. That's going to be tax.completed. Completed. pause this. Okay, this is actually, let me just copy this. It was what I was supposed to do right here previously. I was making a mistake. So let me just copy this. Let me copy this and paste it right here. So sometimes you don't get it all figured out, except when you're writing it. Where is that? Oh, thank you very much. These are minor things that I've not allowed our code to run. Thank you very much to Bechuku. Yeah, thank you. So we have span completed. And what are we having right inside? We have the tax ID. We have tax, the text. We have tax, the text. And the next one, we have our buttons. UTTON. Button. Okay. Button. I would have our class of class equals btn, sorry, btn dot delete slash btn. I would have an onClick. OnClick equals delete tax dot id. Yes. So we have our delete button right here. Sub delete. And yeah, we are done with that. That's simply what we are done. And after that, we'll just return li. So let's now call our function. Let's now call our function for the first time as const init. Hope this code is going to run. Add dot btn dot disable. Add btn dot disable equals true. Now I've rendered tax. Render tax. I will now also have update tax. Update tax. I will call our function init. So let's see. For the first time, we are running our application. And is this clickable? Is this disabled? So let's see. And what's going on? Let me do some console.log. So now that we have written our code, we would now have to start debugging. Okay. So it's saying add tax before, cannot access add tax before initialization. There's no place I'm calling add tax before initialization. So now let's now see is okay. I'm not calling the function right here. I'm not calling our function. So we would, let's now start debugging. Saying online 83, add tax function online 83. Click add tax. So see where the issue is coming from. It should be a click event. So let's see. Let's refresh. Line 83. I have 6 stars now. Is a click event. The add event list now is a click event, so it's no longer initialized. So it's only once it's clicked that is going to give us an issue. So let's click. It's only once it's clicked that it's going to give us an issue. So I don't know. Add event list now. Click attacks. Okay. Come in. Come in. Let me put this parameter here first because this should. Why is attacks being initialized? Come in. Let me comment this out. See if we are still going to update tax is not defined. 212. Comment. So let's see. Okay, yeah. Our application is now working. But why are we not seeing anything rendered on the screen yet? So you can see the first one is working. Has disabled our button. So this is how we start debugging it one after the other. So we have added the button. So once you click on the attacks function, it's not working. So why is it not working? So let's go back to check that. The attacks function. Oh, sorry. I know why it's not working. So it should be an input field. Hey, I know why it's not working. Line 133. Line 133. What is the issue there? Line 133. It's saying that assignment to a const variable. Line 133. Assignment to a const variable. Shouldn't it be a const? Yeah, it's a const now. So why are you saying assignment to a const variable? Input field of trim. Let me use a let and let's see. Let. So let's try it out and see. 9133. I've changed it to a let. So why is it still? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Alan. Don't call me. Control Z. Line 133. I was checking line 113. Yeah. So yes, no. Yes, this is correct actually. It's actually correct. So why is it now throwing error on line 133? Tax input disable. Tax input disable. Tax input disable. Tax input disable. Okay, I know why. Dot value. Okay, yeah. So I think that should have solved our error now. Okay, we don't have any error, but it's not displaying. So this is also working. So why is that not working? But we don't have any error either. So let's check our create tax function and understand where the error is coming from. Let's check our create tax function and see where the error is coming from. So create tax. So create tax. So okay, come in. It calls create tax. So let me see. I'm trying to see something. Intro F. Okay. Okay, I'm coming. No, it's this. I didn't declare any tax that is called update tax actually. So update tax is not defined. So that is going to throw an error basically. That's going to throw an error. So I know that it's going to throw an error. So update tax is like a different function on its own. I have not written that function. So it's definitely going to throw an error. So that's why I commented it out. So let me check through it again. And I know I'm not, why is this not calling? Trying to see why this is not being called. I'm trying to see why this is not being called. Trying to see why this is not being called. I'm trying to see why this is not being called. So, trying to see why this is not being called. Trying to see why this is not being called. Trying to see why this is not being called. I think this is going to be your tax. I think it's going to be your tax. Mm. It's going to be your tax. So trying to see why is it not being called. I think I've seen where the init function is actually being called. If the init function is not being called, all these other functions are not going to be called because they are called inside the init function. Yeah. So I think I found you guys tasks for this stage. So you guys are going to complete this. So your task is going to be that you work on it, that you fix the bug. One, that once you click on the add task button, it updates this state. I'm going to give you like a prototype. I'm going to like solve it. I'm going to give you like a prototype on a view link so you can see what you guys are going to achieve. So that's going to be your task. Let me do like Nigerian university lecturers. Once you're finding something hard in class to solve, you give it as an assignment. So I'm going to solve it. Like once I'm done with this, I'm going to solve it. They now deploy it on the web so you guys can see like an actual solution for it. So that's how it's going to be. So thank you very much, guys. And we have come to the end of today's class. So I'm going to give you this as a task. So this is going to be your stage 5 task. not actually had a tax for stage 5 previously. So this is actually going to be a stage 5 tax. So there is no need for me to start thinking of tax in my head any longer. So thank you very much, guys. See you in the next class.